Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining today. We're going to get started very shortly. I'm just going to give people a few minutes to filter into the room. But while people are doing that, I just wanted to thank you all for attending today's webinar, Build the Case for Creative Aging Through Program Evaluation. And this is a part of an IMLS initiative, Advancing Creative Aging Through State Library Leadership. It's a 3-year project funded by IMLS's Laura Bush 21st Century Library Program. And this is done in partnership with the Missouri State Library, the Wyoming State Library, us, Lifetime Arts, and also Khalifa. This webinar is the first in a series of online learning opportunities. So stay tuned for future ones. For those of you who don't know Lifetime Arts, we were established in 2008 as a national service organization to help develop an infrastructure for the emerging field of creative aging. We provide training and professional development, as well as online resources, technical assistance, and consulting services, which includes the nuts and bolts of creating and sustaining these creative aging programs. Our goal is to help community-based organizations break down silos and build partnerships to deliver engaging, participatory programs that recognize older adults as creative and social learners. So I want to talk a little bit about today's agenda. We're going to be hearing from David Scheie and Krisene Watson around evaluation. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about why do evaluation? David is going to talk a little bit about how to incorporate evaluation as a practice into your library work. We're going to hear some tips and tools, as well as we're going to hear directly from Krisene in her experiences in doing evaluation for her creative aging programs. And then we're going to have a Q&A. I would encourage you all as we go through this, if you have any questions that come up, you can just type it into the chat. I'll compile those for a conversation later. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to David.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. Great to see everybody here. I'd actually like to start by acknowledging that many people feel ambivalence or worse about evaluation. Some of the common complaints I encounter include that along with certain skills, doing evaluation takes time and energy, and these are always in short supply. Evaluation does have its tedious aspects. It requires a certain amount of diligent follow-through and attention to detail. I would say that's true of most art well done as well, diligent follow-through and attention to detail, but there's no question that sometimes that might feel tedious. Third, evaluation can be a risky business. The stakes might feel high, they might be high. What if we evaluate a program maybe that we birthed and loved like a child, and the evaluation does not show the marvelous results we hoped for? Fourth, evaluation is a tense topic for all of us because it lives in the space between program operators and the library's outside stakeholders, your funders, your community, your constituencies. Evaluation is a bridging activity between you and your stakeholders. Getting into evaluation reminds you that on some level, you need to be engaged in a dialogue with those stakeholders and audiences about the value of your library's work. This is a vulnerable space, and evaluation is part of that dialogue. If evaluation is done poorly, it can handicap you in that dialogue. If an evaluation doesn't show the results you hope it will show, it raises questions about the value of your work. Whatever the evaluation shows, you have to be able to explain it. If it shows something you didn't expect, it pushes you to admit surprise and to wrestle with the question of why those results, and not the ones you expected and hoped for, occurred. In this way, evaluation is a wonderful learning practice. It helps us to discover new insights about what works and what's important. It sometimes pushes us to learn. And even if and when evaluation is done just as an internal process within your library system, it's still a practice for the purpose of honest dialogue about what works and what doesn't among your internal stakeholders and constituencies, such as your staff at various levels, your board, your volunteers. While I think this is healthy, it also can be stressful. Evaluation is an accountability practice, and while accountability is a healthy discipline, it can also be uncomfortable. It's about opening yourself to critical feedback, both positive and negative. Even if you did evaluation completely in private, by yourself, showing your findings to no one but yourself, it can raise questions for you about the value of what you've been doing. These questions can be most challenging when they come from ourselves. We're often our own toughest critics. Engaging in evaluation means engaging in that dialogue with your own inner critic, as well as with your library's internal and external stakeholders. In sum, all these considerations are why some people look forward to doing evaluation about as much as they look forward to a trip to the dentist. They may believe it's good for them, and they should do it, but it can be uncomfortable, maybe even painful, and it contains that element of uncertainty about what may be found and whether that will hurt or not. However, that's not the whole story on evaluation and its role in a library's well-being. Evaluation can also be a wonderful set of tools for shaping, strengthening, and winning support for programs and organizations. Evaluation is a way to generate evidence of your program's success. It's a way to get a clearer, stronger picture of the value of your library's programming, what difference you're making in people's lives and in your community. By doing evaluation, you can identify the strengths of your creative aging programming, and you can get valuable clues to where and how your programs can be improved. Clues that are not merely your subjective hunches, but based in relevant evidence from sources other than yourself. And evaluation equips you to tell the story of your programming, of your library, and its role in your community powerfully with compelling evidence. You can use your evaluation findings to tell your story in ways that attract more supporters, more investors, more participants, more volunteers, and more opportunities. If you become skilled and active in evaluation, it can help level the power imbalance between your library and those who fund and govern you. This is because evaluation equips you to speak critically and compellingly about your work, its context, its strategic choices, its impact, and its challenges. Not only is this powerful in its content, it also shows that you have the critical, creative, and collaborative skills necessary to navigate and overcome the challenges and barriers that must be faced in your work. It shows that you're a skilled problem solver, an innovative initiator. It shows that your library is a learning organization. All of this helps you earn respect as an institution and yourself as a leader, and you will become more confident in your competence. While evaluation is a craft that you'll continue to improve at over a lifetime of practice, rather like the art forms taught in creative aging programs, the further good news is that it's not that hard to get started in evaluation, particularly, I would say, for library workers. Evaluation is not rocket science. It draws on many skills and practices we use in everyday life. It's really about paying attention to what works and engaging in that thoughtful process of what do we have here? So what difference does it make? And now what are we going to do with what we're learning here? And evaluation taps the strengths that many library workers already have. For one thing, as readers and writers, you understand the power of narrative and what goes into a compelling narrative. You probably already know how to tell the story of your programming so that it captures an audience's attention. You know that a powerful story has a beginning, middle, and end. It has memorable, relatable characters. It shows how these characters wrestle with important challenges as they pursue meaningful goals, and they end up different than when they started, changed by the experience of their journey. And many good stories leave the reader or listener hungry for more. What's the next chapter? What comes next? Also, in my experience, library workers tend to have a great ear for the memorable quote from program participants and others. And as I and Krisene both will talk about later, those authentic quotes from your program participants and others are a key part of how you build the case for your programming. Also, library workers, not yet, Nathan, generally know how to keep things orderly, how to organize information, how to sort it and archive it so that relevant information can easily be retrieved. This is a really practical skill set in effective, efficient evaluation. All right, now with clarity about just a few key principles, you can be effective and useful in your evaluation practice from early on. First of all, as Elizabeth Shore memorably said about 30 years ago, let there be no numbers without stories and no stories without numbers. Both numbers and stories are important for understanding and communicating about your programming and its impact. Stories bring your work and its impact to life. They put it in human terms. They show how the many elements of context, participation, and activity weave together to create results. Numbers, on the other hand, give your story backbone. They give it strength, give it an edge. They help your story be clear and precise, particularly about the magnitude of who your programming is reaching, the scale of what you're doing, and the breadth and height of your impact. So any numbers you use should be explained with words. Use your words to give voice to what the numbers mean. And any story you tell should be connected to numbers that help convey how common or uncommon, how typical or unusual the story is. A corollary to this principle is what we sometimes call critical multiplism, drawing on multiple perspectives and multiple kinds of evidence gathered through multiple methods to gain an understanding and tell a story. Relevant multiple perspectives on your creative aging programming include program participants, community members who fill out creative aging interest surveys, audience members at your program's culminating public events, family members and friends of program participants, teaching artists, program partners, and your own observations. The value of drawing on multiple perspectives is illustrated by the story, I believe it's from India or South Asia, about the blind men and the elephant. A group of people without sight all came around and touched different parts of the elephant, and one said, "It's like a tree trunk." Another said, "It's like, I don't know what." But none of them, until they listened to each other and brought their multiple perspectives together, grasped the totality of the elephant that they were next to. It's similar in evaluation work and telling your story. Bring together the perspective of the participants, the teaching artists, yourself as a coordinator, and so forth. And there are relevant multiple kinds of evidence. These include survey data, information from your routine records, such as attendance records and financial records, interview and focus group notes, observation notes, and reflective notes, whether individual or gathered at a reflective group conversation, for example, between coordinators, supervisors, and teaching artists. While this list might seem quite long, you don't have to use all of these different sources and forms of evidence for a credible evaluation. If you simply go from one form or source to two or three, such as using one form of quantitative evidence plus one form of qualitative evidence, that can make a world of difference. My second key principle is to be clear about 5 dimensions of your organization's work. First, clarity about what you're trying to achieve. What are your desired outcomes? What difference are you trying to make, and for whom? Second, this calls for clarity about who your community is and the population that you want to engage or impact. Third, be clear about why you use the particular approach that you do, the creative aging programming model taught by Lifetime Arts. Why do you use this as your chosen strategy for achieving your desired outcomes? Why is it that you do what you do? What's the logic in your approach? What's your theory of change? These are evaluative questions. Fourth, be clear about what are the meaningful and feasible indicators of progress toward your desired outcomes. What are those markers by which you can tell whether your programs are performing well? What will success look like in these programs? And how can these indicators of progress be collected? Who will collect them, from whom, when, and how? Figuring out the feasibility of collecting relevant data is one of the key areas where evaluation can either be realistic and doable, or marvelous on paper but unrealistic and undoable in reality. And fifth, be clear about what you want to learn. What are your learning questions? What further knowledge will help you improve your programming and increase your impact? This involves thinking about where are you currently operating by guesswork, where further discovery could help you make smarter choices about how to be most effective. My third core principle for effective and satisfying evaluation builds on that last comment about having clarity about what you want to learn. This principle is to cultivate an openness to discovery, to uncertainty and ambiguity. Cultivate a willingness to be surprised and a willingness to make changes based on what you learn along the way. In short, I urge you to build a culture of learning in your organization. Another way to express this principle is to think like an evaluator, by which I mean cultivate the habits of asking evaluative questions, like I was mentioning before, using evaluative logic, and using evaluation data. In the creative aging evaluation model that we've developed over the past 12 years, we've worked to identify and to streamline the essential data relevant to telling the story of this programming in a compelling way. These center on, first of all, who's coming and how many. In other words, what are the demographics of your participants, their age, their gender, their mobility and disability issues, their race and ethnicity. This is relevant for telling who's participating and who is not. To what extent is your programming reaching the full diversity of your community, or is it attractive primarily to certain subsets? To what extent does your creative aging programming attract younger elders, such as those between 55 and 65, or those much older, such as those over 85 or over 90, or something in between? Do different art forms attract more men? Do other art forms work well for people with mobility issues? Demographic data on who your participants are helps us answer questions such as these that can lead to more effective programming. It also helps to note who comes to your public culminating event and how many people those are. This provides clues to your programming's visibility and to the level of community interest in this kind of programming. If your culminating event draws strategically valuable people, such as members of your library or foundation board, leaders of other organizations focused on arts or elders, or members of the media, this is also noteworthy to your program success and how you tell its story. And noting the credentials of your teaching artists helps to indicate program quality. Second, what difference are we making for people? The backbone of our evaluation strategy is the post-program participant survey, a short questionnaire that program participants are asked to fill out at a program's final session. This gathers demographic information from participants and asks participants whether they have experienced growth in 11 possible dimensions of personal well-being, artistic development, and social connection. The survey asks about this because it's a key desired outcome of creative aging programming, that participants will learn and grow and become better connected socially with less isolation. And if participants are reporting growth in these kinds and demonstrating their artistic abilities through the culminating public events, this is evidence that pushes against the negative stereotypes of ageism, such as that older people can't learn, don't grow, and aren't capable. We've developed this survey as a simple, quick way to gather modest but credible evidence on the extent to which these desired outcomes are being achieved. I'll add as well that the participant survey also asks for participants' feedback on the quality of the programming and the performance of the teaching artist in the teaching artist role. And that's valuable too for conveying both your findings about the quality of the program and identifying ways to improve programs and their teaching artist performance. These data, though, on the self-reported growth of participants have proven highly useful for communicating the benefit of creative aging programming and the effectiveness of the Lifetime Arts Program model. It can be reported out on the level of an individual program or aggregated across programs at the library system level or even state and national levels. These survey data provide some of the numbers that give strength to the evaluation story you can tell about how people benefit from participating in your creative aging programming. This is in accordance with that first evaluation principle of no numbers without stories, no stories without numbers. I'm going to show you now an example of how one major supporter of creative aging programming, the Michelson Philanthropy, formerly called Araha Philanthropies, made the case for creative aging using participant survey data at a national presentation I happened to attend. First, the Michelson person noted how broad the survey data was. It was based on surveys filled out by 1,662 different participants from 167 different programs across the 4-year span of 2 linked initiatives. that Lifetime Arts and Touchstone Center were involved in. Then the presenter showed the data on participants' increased creativity and mental engagement, which are perhaps the broadest indicators of beneficial personal growth. So you can see over 80% said their creative aging program experience improved their creative expression. 76%, more than 3/4, said it resulted in increased mental engagement for them. And 69% said it increased their confidence in creative art. And 56%, still over half, said it increased their interest in learning other art forms. Then the presentation went on to highlight the survey findings regarding participants' reported artistic growth in the art form of their class. 79% said their participation increased their skills in that art form and discipline. 80% recorded increased knowledge and appreciation of that art form. And 77% said the program had increased their interest in learning more about the art form. You might notice just what large percentages of program participants are reporting these positive outcomes. That's one of the most impressive things about this program model for many, many audiences. Going on, the presentation also reported out the findings regarding participants' social and physical gains revealed in the survey responses. 68%, again, over 2/3 of people said they formed newer or stronger relationships through their program experience. 55% said the experience encouraged them to participate in other community activities. And 38% even said it increased their physical activity. Now, in their presentation remarks, the Michelson representative also shared some nuances revealed by analysis of participant surveys cross-referenced with program features and demographics. They said social benefits were even more pronounced in dance or movement classes, in programs that included more than 8 sessions, and in programs that included greater racial or cultural diversity among participants. So this is helpful information for someone who might want to particularly do creative aging programming that they can be confident will lead to good social benefits for participants. This is in keeping with Principle 3, be open to discovery. By analyzing multiple kinds of data about program features and the participants reported outcomes, we were able to discover something about what kinds of programming are particularly effective at achieving certain kinds of outcomes. While showing that the vast majority of program participants report many positive outcomes is central to making the case for the value of your creative aging programming, you can also tell a larger story about how this programming benefits libraries and the broader community. In addition to tracking participant outcomes and program features, we encourage libraries to also look for signs that the library's visibility and identity in the community is shifting. As the library becomes known as a place for lifelong learning and a place for in-depth learning and social connection of the kind offered by creative aging programming. Evidence of this can include comments by participants, their family and friends, and by people who attend your program's culminating events. You can capture these through notes you might keep after casual interactions, or by exploring these topics in occasional interviews or focus group conversations. They might show up on a culminating event audience survey form too. People's responses there. If your creative aging programs are attracting people who aren't already library patrons, this is evidence of growing community awareness and support for the library. Look too for signs that more champions for the library are emerging. Some creative aging program participants become leaders of this kind, for example, becoming more active in friends groups and projects. And when library directors and trustees participate in creative aging programs, they often become more active champions for the programming in the library once they've experienced how interesting and enjoyable these classes are. Your story can also include that your library is attracting more organizational partners. As you partner with senior centers, elders' residences, arts organizations, colleges, galleries, and other local organizations to present programs, culminating events, and to attract participants. And we've seen libraries partner with all of those different kinds of organizations in one community or another. Depends on who's in your community and the kinds of organizations and interests of those organizations, of course. The emergence of partners like these can also signal a shift in the library's identity and visibility. These other community institutions are recognizing assets in the library that maybe they hadn't seen before. They're recognizing that the library plays more roles in the community than they may have previously realized. And you're demonstrating that your library is a cooperative local institution, one that builds bridges, makes connections, and initiates win-win projects that benefit others along the library. I would argue that those are signs of benefit to the library as well, to be able to demonstrate those kinds of capabilities as a library. Another dimension of your larger creative aging story is that you're contributing to shifts in local attitudes towards older people and toward aging. Your creative aging programming, with its popularity among older adults and its positive outcomes for older adults, helps to debunk those ageist stereotypes that older people are stale and frail. You can gather evidence of these shifting attitudes by gathering comments from people who attend your creative aging programs. Often the participants themselves have internalized ageist stereotypes, and they surprise themselves by what they and their fellow class participants are capable of. You can track comments of this kind, gather evidence of this kind from people who come to the culminating events of your programs. And you might even collect these from library staff who have previously underestimated what older people are capable of learning and doing. So, to recap the data we encourage creative aging program coordinators to collect and use in evaluating and telling the story of your work, these include post-program participant surveys with their collection of information on demographics, on participants' outcomes and their assessments of program and teaching arts quality, attendance records, which will give you clues about retention and attrition in classes, and also regarding what the best times and seasons of the year are for holding these programs. Community interest surveys conducted to identify the level of community interest in learning different art forms and different possible program schedules. Another form of valuable evidence is visual documentation, such as photos and videos of class sessions, culminating events, perhaps of interviews with participants or audience members or teaching artists. These are really powerful resources for telling the story of these programs and their impact. They provide visual evidence of older adults' creative ability. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words, as the cliche goes. Another form of evidence is reflective notes that can be captured through what we call program logs that coordinators and teaching artists might keep during the life of a program. These are great for capturing signs of strength or weakness in how the program is operating. They can also be a way that you might capture moments of growth or struggle in the class's process for individual or participants or groups of participants. Another valuable source of evidence can be the culminating event audience survey. This is a tool for gathering input and feedback from the people who show up at these events. And finally, interviews and focus groups with groups of participants or participants' family members or teaching artists or event attenders are good ways to gather more in-depth information on program impact and effectiveness. Most of these tools, with instructions on how to use them, are included in the evaluation toolkit for creative aging programmers that's available from Lifetime Arts. And this toolkit also provides guidance on how to organize and analyze your evaluation information step by step, and how to craft the story of your programming using your evaluation evidence. So far, I've been describing the full suite of how evaluation can be a vital skill set and toolkit for telling the story of your programming, winning support for your programming, and making improvements to your program strategy. Now I want to invite a librarian who has been a creative aging innovator to share some of how she uses evaluation in her work. Krisene Watson is the Extension and Outreach Services Librarian for Campbell County Public Library System in Campbell County, Wyoming, where the county seat is Gillette, Wyoming. Krisene began organizing creative aging programs in 2021 through the Creative Aging in Wyoming Libraries Initiative. And with her leadership, her library system has launched creative aging programs in multiple branches and in partnership with several other organizations in the county and in multiple art forms. Krisene has used her evaluation data to tell the story of her library system's creative aging work and to cultivate support from multiple sources, including the Wyoming State Library, the Wyoming Art Council, and the IMLS-funded Advancing Creative Aging Through State Library Leadership project. So now I turn to Krisene and ask you to share some of your story about how you use evaluation to strengthen and build support for your creative aging programming. In particular, I'd ask you to address these three questions. First, what evidence or data do you find most powerful for conveying the value of your programming? Second, what tips help you keep your evaluation work efficient as well as effective? And third, how has evaluation helped you make the case and build support for your creative aging programming? Krisene?
Okay. Thank you for having me. I've learned a lot on this program of things I need to do, and so thank you for that information. In answer to the question, what evidence or data do you find most powerful? I think the whole evaluation process that we have, having the demographics and then the personal feedback report and the program quality all give a lot of good information and can help you take that information so you can see how well the program's doing on building connections between the people and how well they're learning the art form and what they want to if they want to learn more about other art forms. So that can kind of give you a little bit more information on what you need to do in the future. And so I've kind of adjusted the survey to have some open-ended questions. From the first couple of times that we did it, we didn't have any open-ended questions, and so I added some to it. And so I have your demographic information, and then I added, after the personal reporting, I put what part of the class has the biggest impact for your life. And so people would put different open-ended questions that we can use as sound bites for our marketing and help our marketing push this. I also put, please explain your, under the program quality, please explain your rating, because people would get confused on what strongly disagree being 1 and strongly agree is 5. And so if they said, this is a fantastic program, I love it, I love everything about it, and they're circling 1, then I know they just screwed it up. It's not that they're saying that this is a bad program. And I've had that happen quite a few times. And so that's why I put the please explain your rating. And I've also gotten some great sound bites from that as well. And then at the end of the survey, I asked some more questions to get some more sound bites on what they would say to the grantors, because it's important that they know the grantor, the people who are giving us the money, what these people are feeling and how they appreciated the program. So I added that to the programs to help me have more information to give to those people. On what tips help me keep the evaluation work effectively is the last class before instruction starts. That's when I hand it out to them. And so they're a captive audience still. And I also tell them the importance of the survey, why we need this information. And once I started doing that and telling them that this information goes back to the grantors, so they give us more money for more programs if they see that we're doing well with their money. And so the people are more willing to add, to think of it clearly and be more upfront with what they're feeling and thinking. And so I found that has helped. And the third tip that I have is to get it written down as soon as possible, go through the survey and do it as quickly as possible, because you forget. And so having those sound bites together and things like that and doing the report as quickly as possible is key to getting that information written down. And we're all great at procrastination, so that's why we need to get it written as quickly as possible. How has the evaluation helped you make the case and build support for your creative aging program? I create a video after I'm done with all the pictures and stuff like that, and so I'm able to give that out to all the participants, and then they send that out to their family and friends and show it. It's actually on our YouTube channel, so we can highlight that information. I also am able to speak a little bit clearer about what we're doing and what impact it's having, because I'm able to relate the as he said, the stories to the numbers, and giving people how many people this has affected and why it's important, and what they feel about it, and having the stories that go along with it has helped me to share the vision of creative aging. So I think that's the 3 questions you wanted me to highlight, David.
And I'm going to show an example of the video, Krisene, that you're talking about. Let me spool that up real quick.
Okay. This is a video from the Wyoming Arts Council. After getting the information from 2 reports that I've done, they wanted to come up and do a video on the next class. And so they did a video on the woodworking class that we held at Area 59, a partnership group here.
We're doing a woodworking class for creative aging.
It was amazing when I got here to see what they had here.
They're learning how to make cutting boards.
We had like 3 different kinds of wood to pick from: maple, a walnut, and cherry. And then we had to cut them in strips. I came in with all my fingers and I wanted to leave with all my fingers. The help we got was just unbelievable. They were right there at all times.
And if you had a question, they'd come over and help.
And then we had to sand them, plane them, and then we had to glue them.
I haven't been around where we used as much of the computer and the laser and thing this way. They had to help me quite a bit on some of that.
We picked our design and then we learned how to get it into a file and then, get it over to where we could change things if we wanted on it.
They put what they're interested in and what goes with their house. And so they were able to design that, and then we took those to the laser printer.
Each day you had to set with someone different, so you kind of got to know people and got to know everyone.
I love seeing the friendships they build. That camaraderie is so important.
I think things like this are fantastic. You need something else and to get out and get a little life in our life.
I like to see the joy that they get when they're doing these classes, and seeing that they can do something like this and it turns out beautiful. Creating something brings joy. Then they have a sense of purpose and they get out more and do more things. No matter what age you are, you have something to give to society.
It gets them out of the house, away from the TV, out of their rockers, and getting them to know that they actually can do that. I can make this, they can make this.
Because the word's getting out, people are just clamoring, wanting to take the class. We have people calling on the phone all the time asking when the next grant class is coming up. What are we going to do next?
I think that shows the impact of the program in a lot of ways. I'm so proud of those people. It's just wonderful. Not proud of myself on being on there because I hate being in front of the camera, but enjoy the fact that they were able to capture the feeling that they had about how wonderful these programs are. And so that's hard to put in just numbers. Having that with the numbers helps.
We're going to be moving into our Q&A. So if anybody has questions for David or Krisene, please feel free to put them in the chat. But first, David, I think I'm going to ask you if you have a question for Krisene you'd like to start us off with.
Yeah, Krisene, thanks for your remarks and thanks for your work on an ongoing basis. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the value of making a video of each of your programs. how do you fit the filming of that into your work routine? Do you pop in occasionally or often to program sessions? How do you get that done?
I usually attend most of the sessions. When they were in Write, it's hard for me to get down to Write to do the classes, and so we're trying to do a hybrid class with them so that they're on the video with us, and then trying to get to know the people a little bit better. I love the connection with the people, and so I try to be at all the classes as much as I can. I have a volunteer that goes to every class also, that takes pictures and makes sure the roll is taken, things like that. And they are participants of the class. So they're from one of my first classes, and they know what the process is. So that volunteer has been through it and knows what I expect. And so then they can do the same thing. But when I do the videos, I make time to do that because it's so important for them to see it. They're proud of what because the participants can see from the very beginning to the end what they have done, because I do a progressive, and then they can see the final product, and they're proud of it. They send it to their families and everybody else, and so I make time for that. Sometimes it's my own time to do it, but it's important for me to have that information. Plus, I send that to whoever is the granting foundation, like the Wyoming Arts Council. I send it with my report to them so that they have it. And they've used it in some of their little clips from that in their media as well. So it helps them, it helps us.
Thanks. I really, among the many things you just said, your comment about how capturing people's change and growth over time is just so thrilling to witness, I think is a good thing to keep in mind for all of us who are trying to tell the story of this work, and build the case for this work. That's compelling narrative when we can show how people grow in their skill and vision and confidence over time through the experience of the programming you're offering.
I use it at the culmination events to be able to help the people, the audience, get to know why they're coming to this and how it's important, because I put in there what creative aging is and why we're doing it. And that helps educate them as well.
I wonder if you, pardon me, Nathan, cut me off if I'm asking too much or saying too much, but I appreciated your remarks about your volunteer who's starting to do some of that. And I hear that and I think, well, here's a librarian who's strategically building capacity for her evaluation and her programming through a team approach. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the highs and lows of trying to build a team with your volunteer to document and evaluate your programming?
Well, you got to have a volunteer that knows how to take pictures. One of my volunteers that I had, one of the classes, every single picture she sent me was so blurry you couldn't tell who was in the picture. So I had to work with her on showing her how to use her camera to take good pictures and educate her on doing that. I also popped in once in a while to take pictures, so I made sure that I had some good pictures of the people as well. I've also learned not to take 150 pictures each class period, but take 10 or 15 good pictures of the people showing what they're doing and stuff. And that cut my work down immensely. So just training. It's all about training, trying to get them. They want to be at the class, and so it's my way of helping them be a part of it.
We have a couple of questions I have come in. The first question is, Krisene, would you mind sharing your survey with us?
Sure. The survey results?
I believe the tool. I'm going to guess the tool, the template.
Oh, the survey I have is from Lifetime Arts. I've just adjusted a couple things on it by adding a couple questions, open-ended questions that I wanted to know. And I've changed that over time. But it's there for you, and you can just add a couple open-ended questions that you want to know. Because as I've gone through this, I've changed how I've worded the questions because it depends on what information I'm looking for the soundbite I'm looking for or something like that. And so one time I'll say, what was your favorite part of the program? What did you like or dislike? Because I'm trying to improve on that certain program. Whereas another time I'll say, what impact has it had on your life? Because I'm looking for that information on how the impact is being done, sound bites for that. So I change it depending on what I want to find out from the people. So each one is a little bit different.
And I'm going to barge in here and say, as somebody who often coordinates evaluation in multi-site initiatives, I like, Krisene, your response of tailoring the survey form to suit your particular interests by adding questions, not by changing questions that are there, at least resisting that temptation as much as you can, because in order to aggregate results across many sites, like in the data displays I showed from the Michelson Philanthropy presentation with 1,662 surveys from 167 programs, if each program is asking a different set of questions with slightly different phrasing, we really can't aggregate that with integrity. So I'm a big believer in evaluation should be useful to the local program leader and enable them to win support and to make improvements and all that. But I'm hoping there's a way that we can get to a both and of serving that local particular interest and being able to aggregate across multiple programs and multiple sites.
I also want to add that we will be sharing the toolkit that David was referencing earlier that has the tools and templates on it. And Krisene, with your permission, I can also share this example so folks can see how you did make those adjustments to tailor it and get the information you need. A couple more questions. Who is funding the cost of videographer and editing of this program evaluation? And Krisene, maybe I'll ask you to answer for this specific example, how that came to be.
The funder for the video that you saw was the Wyoming Arts Council. They provided the videographer and the funding for all of that because they wanted that information for their purposes, and they gave it to us. And so I do all the program evaluation stuff for the Wyoming Arts Council. However, with when we've gone through the Lifetime Arts, they have, you just type in the answers into a fill in the form survey thing, and they do all the crunching the numbers and doing that part. So does that answer that?
Yeah, thank you, Krisene. And I think I'll also just add Krisene and others on this call are participating in various initiatives that Lifetime Arts has developed and put together, and that's essentially our role at Lifetime Arts is trying to create opportunities and partnerships to demonstrate this work. So we're hopeful that through this and through demonstration of these programs, more state libraries, more state arts councils, more funders are generating more opportunities for people to apply for funding and things like that. So I thought I'd just add that. And then we have one more question, but it's a multi-part question. So I think I'll break this up piece by piece. So the first question for Krisene was this grant part of a series class? Was this part of a series? And did you note the age range? Like this program is intended for ages blank to blank.
Yes. We got 4 grants from the Wyoming Arts Council, and each of the grants, and same with the Lifetime Arts grants, each of the grants are set up to have a series class. So you have 8 classes, and they build on their skills from one class to the next. And so it's important for them to be building on their skills and to have multiple classes to do that. the age range is dependent on the grant. When we did the grant through the Lifetime Arts, it was 55 plus. With the Wyoming Arts Council, it's 60 plus. And so it just depends on which initiative you're a part of. And my screen just went blank, so I can't see the screen for a second.
We can still see you.
Crazy. Okay, that's good. Okay, and
another question, a kind of follow up to that. I guess it's related to the age. Is that did you include that you'd be working with sharp tools? I think in maybe the marketing or the disclaimer for the class.
The sharp tools. What are you meaning?
I
don't understand.
I think it's in reference to the video with the woodworking.
And
maybe,
okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I can also ask the person if you want to clarify. But I'm going to guess, did you like market it like this is a class for 55 plus, and there would be, some safety considerations?
When we told them at the outset with the when they could register, it said that what we would be doing. I give a list of some of the things that we'll be doing, like an outline in the class, learning these tools, learning this, and so that they have an idea before they click, yes, I want to register, what we're going to be doing in the class, so that we're for sure they're on board. And then I also call them beforehand and say, okay, are you okay with doing this? And so that way I make sure the 10 people that I have signed up for that class are all on board and they're willing to do the things that we're going to be doing in the class before they're finalized into the class. So that way we could weed out someone who, they can't stand up at all whatsoever. They can't stand up to put pressure on the sanding or whatever, that we either make adjustments for them or whatever. So we do put that into our marketing materials beforehand.
And then the final part of this question is, how much of your current programs was fully fleshed out before applying to the grant that allowed you to host this program, especially the evaluation part?
We have to kind of, when we're applying for the grant, we had to say what kind of classes we want through the Wyoming Arts Council initiative. So I did a little research on what kind of classes people might be interested in, trying to get teachers and things. And then I presented that as part of that grant when I was going for that grant. And so in actuality, were those classes the ones that we did? No, because the teacher of my stained glass class had to have arm surgery or shoulder surgery, and so she was out for the year. Whereas we were able to get a different teacher and did fused glass instead. And so that's still along the lines of what we were doing, but it's a little bit easier, more forgiving media. And so that's what we ended up doing. In the evaluation part, no, we didn't have that in. We didn't have to worry about that part at that point.
Thanks, Krisene. And there's just one follow-up question. Where was the makerspace that held the woodworking class?
Area 59 is Gillette College. They have a class building that has a huge makerspace in there. It's on steroids. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful place. You could look it up online, Gillette College, Area 59. And it has pictures of what it does and stuff, and it's phenomenal. We've done, I think, 3 or 4 classes in there with plasma art, woodworking. So 3 classes, 2 plasma art and 1 woodworking class in there. And the people just absolutely love the whole setup. So.
Well, thank you, Krisene, for sharing that really incredible experience. And I also want to thank David Scheie for the presentation on, how you can start thinking like an evaluator, as David likes to say. I love that. I have their contact information here if you have any further follow-up questions for either of them. But again, I wanted to thank you for attending. I also wanted to do a little self-promotion that we also have a free online course called Creative Aging Foundations on Demand, that includes all of the sort of nuts and bolts to mounting a creative aging program, but also ways to evaluate the program, as well as we'll be sharing that toolkit that David mentioned. And that this is also the first of a series of online learning series webinars. So stay tuned for more of that. But thanks again, and see everybody shortly.